Welcome back, all you cool cats and kittens. It's your Commissioner Tim alongside Commissioner Brandon, and we've got Sergey joining us, Mr. Ambassador, kicking off, I believe, episode 6 of the 2022 preseason manager interview. Sergey, it's a pleasure to have you here, man.
Hey, thank you guys so much. Before we start, I just want to say thank you very much for Tim and Brandon to consider me for this league. I think it's a privilege to be a part of this league, and I'm super excited for the years to come, and it's going to be a blast. I just know it, and I'm just so thankful for this opportunity.
I mean, it's both ways. Like Brandon and I already had you as a manager. We wanted even in the inaugural season. I know the calendars didn't work out, but I was ecstatic to know that you're going to be joining for this season.
Awesome.
Sergey, it's the first time for a lot of folks in our league to be able to sort of get to know you. Might be the first time that they're seeing you on video. With the lottery draft, but would love to give you the opportunity for you to sort of introduce yourself for the rest of the league to get to know you. Brandon's got some questions that he wants to ask on just to get to you a little bit better, but just sort of self-introduction, man.
Cool. My name is Sergey. Born in the 80s, came to the US in the 90s. In 97, I lived in California most of my life here. Recently relocated to Montana. I'm in Kalispell up north next to some of the northern guys that we have in our league. General, just like to work on cars. Love sports. I'd say I'd like NBA the most. Recently married, no kids. We got a cat. I'm just loving Montana. Miss my family back in California, but overall having a great time out here.
Awesome. What do you do for work?
So I'm a school psychologist. I've been doing this for about 6 years now. And me and Brandon went to the same program for masters.
Awesome. Yep. What does like a typical NFL Sunday look like for you? Or what do you, now that you're in this league, that's probably going to take up a lot of your time. What do you envision Sundays looking like?
I'm going to subscribe to the network and try to get as much NFL I can this year. So waking up, having breakfast, the TV is going to be on, the computer is going to be on, and wife's probably going to be yelling in the background, but hey, it's Sunday, football.
It's a big investment, honey. So you mentioned that NBA is probably first for now. Who's your NBA team? Do you have an NFL team you like to follow more than the others?
Spurs fan. Pretty much since the Tim Duncan era, big time Spurs fan. And NFL wise, I don't necessarily have a team. I mean, I could just tune in. If it's a great game, I'm watching it. If it's a weak game, I'll probably skip it. But in general, I definitely tune in, try to watch at least two games a week.
Yeah, I think that might actually be an advantage. You don't, fall in love with players just because they're on your team or something. That could work out. What's your favorite drink?
I mean, I like whiskey. I like bourbon. My go-to is probably Woodford.
I think we've got 2 Woodfords already in these interviews, so that's good.
Water today.
Water, good boy.
Yeah, so Sergey, obviously you joined us this offseason, kicked it off for us with the new manager draft, which all of us had a really fun time sort of seeing. So obviously no first season to talk about, but let's start off there. What was sort of your mentality going into the new manager draft? I know you had some players that you obviously were targeting off the bat. You got a lot of them. To talk us through that, like your plan coming in, your emotions throughout, and how it sort of played out.
Truthfully, I had 2 plans. My initial plan was try to get as many young guys as possible. All right. If he was going to go for them, I'd have to pivot and I'd probably go for the older guys. But in general, I wanted Justin Jefferson. I wanted the Jalen Hurts. I wanted the Trevor Lawrences of the world. I wanted Dobbins, Michael Carter, even though we know the situation now, and Elijah Moore. I pursued younger players. I was surprised he wasn't bidding on Justin Jefferson. I think I got him really cheap. But I tried to take digs, but he was going kind of high, and so I kind of backed off. But generally speaking, I wanted to go young.
Yeah, I mean, you got Justin Jefferson for $150, and I think the average on auctions was like 260 or something like that. So I felt like that was a grab for you, and that was one of the first players, I think.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he did great. I think he got some great players too. I don't know. I like I said, I was pursuing age. Um, I still have some age on my team. My team has definitely changed. Um, but there's some players I probably shouldn't have pursued. We could talk about that a little later. But overall, I think I did okay, and I'm going to make the best of it this year.
Yeah, I mean, no question. I think, you and I had talked leading up to the draft, and you kind of talked through those two strategies and how you would pivot and everything. I think you obviously did your homework going in, and I think, I mean, you left with all of those targets, right? You got every single one of those, obviously at the expense of depth, right? But and I know Tim has mentioned this on videos and just in talking together. I think I would have done this exact same thing, especially in Dynasty. When you're going to be stuck with guys for years potentially, you want your guys. And Justin Jefferson was night and day, in my opinion, as a Dynasty asset, better than anybody else on the board. And just getting him alone, puts you on a trajectory to be a good team. Like I said, at the expense of depth. So, we got to the end of that draft, and at certain points, Kyle was just able to, throw a guy out there, get him for whatever, and move on. So his team definitely had that depth piece. What was your direction leading out of that draft with the team you had assembled? What was your vision? Did you foresee yourself as a win now team? You mentioned having a lot of young guys. Was it a rebuilding kind of accruing assets team? Like, what was your direction, and where was that going?
So, as being a kind of a new fantasy football guy, this is my first dynasty, obviously, and I've done it twice previously. I'm a new manager. That's, I think, one of my biggest weakness. It's not necessarily my team. I think it's me, because I'm new to the game, and I think going in initially, I'm not gonna win, right? My team's not good enough to win, but I'd like to compete. I'm competitive, and so can I make the playoffs? And so my short-term goal is to make the playoffs, and I want to do it consistently. And with time, I hope I improve and eventually win the championship. But again, I'm not really seeking a championship right now. I'm just trying to make the playoffs, and that's my short-term goal. And then I'll go from there, because I got to master some things. Again, this is novel to me, and I got to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Tim can probably attest to this, we've done 6 of these interviews, and we've heard that almost in all of them. Everyone, we're learning for sure. And we're all at different levels of just fantasy football in general. But I mean, I commend you for that. And I think you have to learn, right? You have to make mistakes to learn. You have to do certain things. I don't think it's, can we roll into kind of the first trade, which was the Mixon trade, which I think is what you're kind of alluding to, is maybe that one that I don't even know if you can call it a mistake, but just one you've learned from. I might be biased. Obviously, I got the picks, but at the same time, I mean, Joe Mixon is the asset you kind of want. He's a younger running back if you're trying to get into the playoffs. So, is the price you paid, considering that you're not already necessarily a contender to win it all, was it too much?
I think it was. I think it was definitely, and I am the biggest self-critic. And after that trade, I was going to sleep and I was just like overthinking the anxiety. I was like, what did I do? How did I mess this up? This is a just huge mistake. But then I kind of forgot about it. Time passed, life goes on. You got to continue to, make moves and improve. So I think I did pay a lot. Joe Mixon, yeah, he's a stud. However, he is 25. He's going to be 26 years, this year. How long will I have him? 2-3 years, I don't know. I think giving out 3 picks, first rounders, it was a lot, Would I do it? What if I could go back, I wouldn't do it, to be honest. But it is what
I think, and just in like doing trade talks with you, I can, since then I can tell you've learned already from that. And I think the beauty and the curse of Dynasty is that you have to learn these things, which can hurt really hard. And I mean, I'm in the same boat. I traded for Austin Eckler last year, and now I don't have Javonte or 2 picks, which would be really beneficial to me right now. You have to learn, but the beauty of it is that we're in this league forever, right? This is your roster. You can learn from it. You can move on. You can grow. And going forward, you probably won't even think about this trade 4 years from now.
Sure.
But of course, I mean, those 3 picks that ties you to kind of thinking about it for the next few years.
It does. It does. And there was a lot behind the scenes. During the draft, I was at Brandon's house. We were talking football all weekend long, and the wheels started spinning, and I kind of wanted to make some moves, and it continued on. And before that trade happened, me and him sent each other easily 10 to 15 offers before I submitted that last final offer that he couldn't pass up.
Yeah,
So
I think probably besides just like learning the nuts and bolts of fantasy, I think learning kind of the patience behind these deals and also the value of picks, right? I think, as Sergey, as you listen back to you're the 6th one we've, recorded today. And I think as you listen back, you're going to hear this over and over and over, even with contending teams, learning the value of picks. And obviously I value them a ton with the strategy I'm on, but even those teams right now that have a chance to win it all, but don't have any picks, they're starting to second guess that strategy. So, I wouldn't lose a single ounce of sleep going forward. You've obviously learned from this, and let's roll right into your next trade. Cause I think knowing now and kind of you talking about the fact that you want to make playoffs, you want to make some noise. Who knows what can happen if you squeak in there, right? Let's roll into that next deal, because I think that fits that sort of strategy a little bit better and helps to make sense why someone like Trevor Lawrence might not be in your plans right now.
correct. Yeah, I wanted to improve in the wide receiver positions. And I saw John's roster, and I think his roster would have benefited from a younger guy. And we started negotiating. We went back and forth a little bit. And, I think that was a really fair trade for both teams. I think it works for him. It works for me. I mean, Debo, is his production going to be as awesome as last year? I doubt it, but can he put up solid numbers? Can he give me 250 points, maybe 270? I think so per the season. I don't think he'll get 300 again, but he's a physical guy. Who knows? He also might get injured. They're going to try to limit him. It just really depends. But I think in general, it worked out for John and me in a positive way.
Yeah, I look at that trade. I mean, I think a couple things, like just chiming in here. I think a couple things to know, like Sergey, just like it gives me sort of goosebumps the way that you sort of like either self-critique yourself or you're just like thinking through it, because it just shows just the speed of how you're learning and taking all this on. And I think that's what gives me a lot of excitement about this league as a whole too. It's just like, again, all of us are learning at the same time about this aspect of dynasty, let alone fantasy football as a whole. And I think, you're already making strides in that. And I think I probably would have felt the same thing. Like, geez, as a new manager join into it, you want to make moves, right? Like, especially when the rest of the league's just hounding to make moves with you, it's fun. That's the whole aspect of fantasy, for our detriment or not, right? But I think reps at bat is what gets you the experience that you can actually, use to get better at. If you just sit on your hands all day, like, what the fuck are you gonna do? It's all theoretical. You don't learn anything. There's no regret. And I think, all these moves that you've made, man, it's like, it's not going to have ramifications, right? I think it's not going to have like long-term ramifications where you're just shitting out for a long time. Like, it's not, so I wouldn't necessarily worry about that too much, but it's actually like looking at the next trade, right? Right after that, your second trade in the season so far in the off season with the Debo. If you made the call that Trevor Lawrence isn't going to be the top tier quarterback that people thought he was going to be when he was selected at 101 draft picks every rookie draft last year in Dynasty, he had a down year, right? Maybe that's the Urban Meyer effect. Who knows? I think there's a lot of people that's high on him, that fits their timeline better, that want to take that bet, and that's John. And meanwhile, you get a proven stud in Debo, and he's not old. And I think he's going to be able to play out his second contract whenever that does come. And now you've solidified yourself a top 6, top 5 wide receiver in that slot as you think about utilizing your pieces to sort of, juice it up all together. So I think that all that said, like, I think you as a manager are going to continue to improve. What really resonates with how you're talking about it is you feel like you're the biggest weakness in your roster right now. And I think that's a fucking awesome way to sort of think about it, right? Like, you're only going to get better from here. So I'm just excited to have you in the league, and just like knowing that we have a manager in the league that's committed to just like getting better as a manager, because that's just going to make it more fun and more competitive for everyone across the board.
Word.
So yeah, let's dive into your roster. Just looking at it for this season, kind of in the scope of how it's constructed at this point. So I mean, you obviously there's a lot of talent on here. There's a nice kind of mix of young and some veteran guys. Walk me through by position, kind of your thoughts about where your team is at, maybe in relation to some other teams in the league, or where you think kind of your different positions fall at this point.
I think my wide receiver positions are pretty solid. I think those are definitely an area of strength on my team. Running backs I'm struggling for sure. I mean, Michael Carter, he's probably not going to get as much touches, and Brees is going to start day one, and he's going to get a lot of touches, and then when you look at Connor, he's getting old, not producing as much. So those are, as far as weakness, I would say the running back position is weak for me. When I think of other teams, I mean, you guys did a great job talking about the tiers and breaking down all the tiers. I have it kind of in 5 tiers. So I have Ryan, Brady's third dynasty, as he's a tier alone to me. Tier number 1. Tim, I think you're a tier by yourself as well. You're at the 2 position. Cup and Kennedy are tier 3. Myself, Travis, and John are tier 4 at this time, in my opinion, and Brandon's at the bottom. However, the tier 3 and 4 to me are a bit fluid. I think Travis could be easily in the conversation with Cup and Kennedy and myself. So for me, tiers 3 and 4 are very fluid, but I think Ryan, for sure, he is the champ. He's the person to beat. Tim, you're number 2, in my opinion.
That's a solid way to break it down. I think the 5-tier system is roughly how a lot of the other managers sort of look at the league as a whole. I mean, the numbers at the top and numbers at the bottom, with the exception of Brandon at the bottom, that's unanimous. But everyone else around that, I think it's basically the top same 4. I think that's been sort of the unanimous sort of thing. And then they also think about Kyle, and you put Eves into the Cup and Kennedy teams. I think they also put that as a very close in terms of whoever that 4th seed is. I think there's a play, right? Basically what you're saying is there's a play for Sergey's, the Johns, and the Travises to sneak up to that 4th. I think that's basically like just consensus in terms of how sort of people feel about it at large. I think just touching on sort of, the rosters total, like just marrying the contention, sort of the tiers that you just put in, Sergey, along with sort of how you viewed your own roster. I feel like the folks that you put into tier 3 are going to be the biggest movers and the shakers of the league come mid-season. Because I look at your roster, James Conner, sure, he might not have like crazy dynasty upside, but he still has a chance to be a top 10 running back like he was last year. Like, who's going to replace his touches? If anything, it's freed up, right? And then you look at Joe Mixon. I think a contender probably is interested in him. He's still relatively young, where you have players like Kyle and Ease who's wanting to maximize on their next 2 to 3 years, right? So I think there's a lot of moves that can happen in the midseason, and knowing how active you are compared, like from the historical sort of like leagues that we've been in together, I think you're due for probably, I would put you as an early favor for the number of moves that get made this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love movement. It just gives me dopamine release, man. I just love it. It's so much. It's just so fun talking trades, moving trades, negotiating, and just making it happen. I just love it. So I'm always open to trading, and everyone should know I often send a low ball offer just to get the conversation started.
Talk to me. I talk back. I mean, you don't have to get real specific if you don't want to. If you want to, feel free. But like, what are some areas or some guys maybe that you're targeting, or picks, or what are you thinking? Because I do know like you're wanting to still be active. You're still putting your fingers, you're dipping your toes in a little bit. So like, what are you looking for?
I've been really pursuing Matt Stafford. I don't have Jordan. Who knows? Jordan Love hopefully gets traded, and I hope Seahawks give him a chance. But whatever. I need a QB. I'd love to pursue Matt Stafford. I've tried, I've attempted. I've offered, but hey, he had other plans in mind, so I get it. And I mean, those guys, I mean, they've had so much transactions. They're like trading all the time. It's more transactions than the Royal Bank of Canada. It's like, so
Yeah,
it's
I want to touch on that Matt Stafford point. So obviously you want to get a quarterback. Are you seeking Matt Stafford specifically because of maybe the perceived value to where you have him? Because like for me, I'm a little confused around someone that's looking to rebuild for the future. Obviously, you want to be in playoff sort of tier. Is his age a concern for you at all in terms of the timeline that you're trying to maximize?
what I think he's on a 3-year deal now, right? He signed a 3-year deal. I think he could play relatively good for the next 3 years. I really do. I could see him continuing to perform, honestly. He's on a good team. I don't see why not.
So it sounds to me based on that you envision your window being within the next 3 years. You're going for it, basically. Is that what I'm hearing?
And like I said earlier, guys, I can't say I'm going for the championship. I just have a short-term goal to consistently make the playoffs, and I want to be in the playoffs, right?
Mm.
So that's kind of where I want to step first, and then I want to expand to how do I get to the next level? Can my goal is honestly to make the playoffs a couple of years in a row.
I think that's fair, and especially this year might be tough just because of what the tier rankings that you had. But once we get to 10, maybe as early as next year, 6 teams are going to be making it into the playoffs every year. So I think that's a solid sort of way to think about it in terms of your short-term goals.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked in previous interviews too. I'm thinking back to Yves specifically, just how his team is currently composed. He's got the dinosaurs. He's got a lot of old dudes on there, and he thinks he's got a solid 2 to 3 years. I'm not sold on that. I think he envisions Derrick Henry making it 2 to 3 more years, and I think that's going to be tough coming off a major injury, given his age, given his touches. To me, maybe not this year. I think this year he's good with Henry, Kamara, those sorts of guys. But next year, I think the window to sneak into the playoffs is wide open again. I won't be contending. I don't think maybe John could be in that group that depending on his moves. I don't think Travis will be quite there yet next year, just given the assets he has. So if you drop Yves down, I would keep Travis probably up there, but that 4th spot is wide open in that scenario. And given what I see on this roster, I mean, I don't envision Justin Jefferson backpedaling at all. He's going to be better. DK Metcalf is primed to, regress to the mean in a positively. I think, get him a quarterback, even with Drew Lock. I mean, DK Metcalf's a throw it up and catch it kind of guy. Everyone's salivating over Drake London in this year's draft. DK Metcalf is that guy too. So, I think that's going to be a positive. I think one of Sergey's strengths right now that I know you've tried to look into and haven't found a match yet, it would be your tight ends. I mean, you have Dallas Goedert sitting on the bench, and they clearly Philly's clearly going for it. He's established. He has that rapport. I think that's something, you put in your flex or you find a trade partner for.
Sure.
And obviously Kittle. I mean, Kittle's obviously solid. So, I see some guys, and of course your Jets, that's a kind of wait and see. Like Tim mentioned, I think Elijah Moore is going to be okay. It's not ideal, but, I think he can give you solid value. What I'm trying to say is I see some guys that are going to look better at this time next year than they do at this time this year on your roster. I think your team if Jalen Hurts is the answer, if this year, if he proves that he's the guy with all these new weapons and going into next year, they don't draft a quarterback, they say we're in on Jalen Hurts, this team makes the playoffs with no other moves, in my opinion. If Kirk Cousins falls off the table, you're going to have to make a move to beef up that quarterback too, which can be tough. But in my opinion, if Jalen Hurts is the guy, I think this team sneaks in. So I see it, and some people might not agree with me there, but I see the path with some savvy moves, not mortgaging your future. I don't think you're at that point yet. I don't think you're a true championship contender without, some help. But I see the route to that 4th seed next year.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% too. Sergey, I look at your roster. Obviously, I think the biggest needle move for you, the accelerant, is going to be Jalen Hurts. Do you hit on it or not? And it's not necessarily, is he a fantasy top option? Because he always is going to be. but he needs to have a team, NFL team, the Eagles, believe that he's their quarterback of the future, right? And we're going to see that play out this year. So Jalen Hurts, you're already going to get an easy top 10 finish from him, no matter what happens this year. But if he pans out, I look at Jalen Hurts, I look at Justin Jefferson, I look at DK Metcalf, I look at Elijah Moore. Debo's not going to go anywhere. That's
J.K.
five.
Dobbins.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins. Oh, yeah, J.K. Dobbins. That's
Dude, he's the
6.
top. People were ranking him top 10 before he got hurt. Like
That's what I'm saying, dude. That's 6 core dynasty picks that you basically have as anchor pieces for you. And then I know you're upset about the Joe Mixon trade, but like honestly, I look at that as, hey, you know what? I'm not going to reassess the midseason what my timeline is based on Jalen Hurts breaking out, based on Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Elijah Moore, and J.K. Dobbins playing. Dude, like I said, Joe Mixon this year, he's still going to be a premium asset in terms of what you can get. James Conner is also probably going to be able to get you a decent amount of assets, right? And now you can sort of play away from it. Obviously you have gaps in terms of who's my long-term QB2, right? But that's the issue with every rebuilding roster, right? You add pieces one at a time, but the thing that you had going into the expansion draft is the same thing, which is, do you have blue chip assets at these core positions that you believe you can build around? And I feel like you have 6 that anyone would fucking kill to have on their roster in this dynasty format. And you have other pieces that you can move back from, right? Like, and also like, it's not like you lost you're not, I gave too much shit to Eves throughout our interviews, but like compare your picks to Eves or even Kyle, right? Like Eves has no picks. So he's only reliant on either every offseason getting new first rounds or new set of picks. But he's in a contender window, so you can't trade those chips that are of value. Whereas for you, mid-season, man, you can flip those for firsts and seconds and all throughout, or even longer-term prospects that you want to sort of like bank on. The question that I want to sort of segue into now is you're in this call with the manager that basically sets the prices for what those first-round picks look like. So Sergey, Brandon, how do you think about sort of approaching that?
I mean, we've had basic talks about it, obviously. What helps me to like realize that Sergey is well on his way on the right track is like the trade conversations that go on behind the scenes, obviously. It's going to be the kind of awkward position I feel like I'm in, where do I do something that, may or may not help me long term where I'm going, just to kind of make a move, or do I wait? So, I've said it over and over again, my 2022 picks this year, we can have a conversation. I value them probably higher than anyone, but that's open for conversation. 2023 is all off the table. I mean, I'm basically shutting it down. There's not really a guy out there that I'd be willing, well, maybe, but you know what I mean? 2024 is where I come in and start to want to do some work. So I think those picks are the ones that are expendable. I don't foresee, maybe that's, I think Sergey wants to win prior to that. So I don't know. I think Sergey's team, as the way it's built right now, is probably better suited to sell for already established pieces. I think if we're going to make a trade, so if we come to mid-season, if we come to the trade deadline and, Sergey, if you're like, yeah, I'm not, contending this year, I'm not going to make the playoffs this year. I could see us trading, for Rashad Bateman, for a young piece that still has room to grow as an asset. And I'm not saying that specific. I have quite a few of those, but someone like that still has that room to grow going into next year, going into the year after, that can kind of hopefully take you to the next level. But I don't know. I mean,
even this week, I've been sending you some offers for your first round picks, and that's going to continue because, that's what we do. That's where the excitement is.
Sergey, I think just touching on sort of the potential rebuilding route trees, if you want to sort of like think about that, is like for your roster. Let's say this is so intriguing, like the piece that Brandon was talking about, like you might be better suited to trade for players instead of picks just because of how your roster is composed, and also Brandon just hoarding all the picks. But let's say that you're at you find yourself, let's say we're 8 weeks in, and let's say that 4 spots sort of looks open. Oh, maybe the 3rd spot looks open. And if Sergey's sitting at 3-5, 4-4, somewhere there, I would be a premium sort of target interest for you because I have vested interest in allowing for Eves to not make the playoffs this year because I have his first.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see myself, like, let's say that a Zach Wilson or a Justin Fields does break out. I have no need for them. At least I don't have need for both of them. And I have Davis Mills. Like, if any one of those sort of players end up sort of like really taking that next leap, who's maybe you feel better about than Kirk Cousins, for example, I could totally see him make like myself a move to be incentivized to send you players that makes sense for you to maybe, you know, go over that tipping point to get into the playoffs this year. And I get either younger prospects or, you know, some of your second rounders, especially like next year. So being so stacked, I think there's a lot of route trees beyond just that, or the trees of rebuilding other than just the pick accrual, like to Brandon's point. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think you know, we've talked pretty consistently about like, yeah, obviously the different tiers and stuff. This year, especially just with all the movement we've already had, and we've got, you know, quite a few managers now that love to make deals. I think mid-season is going to be fascinating. I'm obviously not going to be in that kind of group of contenders, but to be able to watch, you know, the different chess pieces that are played for the immediate and distant future, I think it's going to be really entertaining this year. And yeah, I mean, we saw it last year. I mean, these preseason predictions are trying to break down rosters. It's all garbage, really. I mean, anyone can break out, anyone can get traded, anyone can get hurt. And, you know, it changes up everything. So, you know, a lot of people are making pretty much everyone we've talked to has said, you know, the top 4 teams right now are in, and then it's just everyone else would have to get lucky. We know that's not going to happen. Or I'd be very surprised. We saw it last year with 2 of our teams. So, you know, we have some top heavy teams that don't have depth. And with that comes one injury and you're tanking. So I think why I'm higher on, and I know Sergey, you're high on your team too, but I think I'm high on your team because I see guys that I think are going to get better this year that are going to only increase in value. And I also see guys that have kind of been workhorses that don't tend to get hurt. And that's what you want. You want the consistency. Give me a consistent team over, you know, one that is the best one week and the worst the next. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think you aren't like, you're not content. You have moves you want to make. You're just looking for a dance partner. And I don't know if it's like, if patience would be the thing I would preach to you, just, you know, because right now teams, like I said, with the tiers, I think teams are kind of settling in where they think they're going to be. By midseason, it's going to be all freaking jumbled. So, you know, your team might be primed to take someone's desperation. Like Tim said, if Eve starts to struggle out of the gate the way he's built right now, he's going to get desperate. There's just no way around it. He has to. So, you know, I could see your team being someone that could take advantage of that.
You know, I don't know if my team really can provide the consistency I'm looking for, but I think it's a very bipolar team where one week I perform really well, another week I'm mediocre. And I think managers will have a tough time facing me once in a while because, again, the productions of my guys can be up here or down here. And so we'll see. I just don't know. Go ahead.
I will say, out of, you know, you're in kind of that top tier of teams that have had shitty luck this offseason. You know, just with, you know, the Jets drafting with the draft and even with Debo. I mean, you traded for Debo, and I feel like the next day or two was when all this stuff about his trade came out. So some years you just have shitty luck. Hopefully you kind of got that all out of the way. But yeah, like I said, I can see this team. Your team has to me, one of the widest range of outcomes on the season, which is kind of like you said. That's the same thing. It's a boom or bust team, right? So if you boom more often than bust, you might sneak into the playoffs. Last year, 7-7 got you into the playoffs. This year, it's probably going to be a little higher, just given, you know, my team is a bye week and there's some other factors there, but. You never know. I mean, it's not that hard to win 8 games.
Yeah,
so I'm optimistic.
We talked about this in our season preview video at large, but like sorry, I don't know if you remember, but I told Brandon that if there was a shock team in the bottom four of what we're predicting to make the playoffs, I don't think I'd be shocked or surprised by your team making it, right? Because like I just look at your roster, assuming that, you know, all these players are kept. And again, this is like where they come mid-season, let's say you're sitting 5-5 or 4-4 or whatever, because we know Jalen Hurts is going to produce. All your young pieces that we talked about, they're going to be producing like the window is now. And these are rare. There's very few players in the NFL who are suited for both a win now team as well as their dynasty value. And you got 6 of them, in my opinion, right? Jalen Hurts could be a long piece, who knows, but it could be, you know, there for 2 years. But then you also have players that obviously are going to be a top 10 likely option in James Conner and Joe Mixon's and George Kittle. And you have plenty in the flex that we're not even talking about like Deebo Samuel right now. It's like sitting near flex. So I really have a hard time not seeing you being the shocking team of the season. And obviously, honestly, like come mid-season, I'm just so excited about like how your team plays out because I've vested interest in you doing well. But I also like really look at this, which is like Brandon's point, like, can I see your team winning 7? Can I see your team winning 8? Why not? Right? Like I would put it this way. I'll be surprised if your team wins 4. I'll be more surprised if you only win 4 versus you winning 9 this year. Mm-hmm. Right. And so like, that's how I sort of see everything playing out. And I'm like, knowing how active you are in fantasy, I would love to just fast forward 5 months from now and just seeing where you stand and seeing all the moves that you'll be making. Cause I think you can be on the buy side of talent, but you can be on the sell side of talent too. And who knows what happens. I just want to be involved in that action. Right. So I think I'm excited. Actually, I mean, I look at this roster and I'm like, there are, dude. Like you just don't have depth, which is fine because you're not trying to contend, but you don't need depth to make playoffs.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. All right, let's switch over to just like looking down the line. We've kind of touched on this, I think, a little bit throughout, but let's talk a little about like your 3 to 5 year predictions for the league. You already ran through your different rankings and your different tiers right now. Give us, if you can, your tiers that you see in 5 years. What do you think the league looks like in 5 years? That might be a better way to put it.
Well, we'll hopefully have 2 more managers, like Tim said. So I think it's going to be, you know, a little more spread out. I mean, I don't know. I think, obviously, Brandon, I think you're going to do good in the next couple of years. I envision Tim staying at the top 3 kind of team for a while. Depends on what Ryan does. I think he could also be in that conversation. I mean, you know, it's really hard because, to be honest, I haven't really like dove into everyone else's team and and it's hard to understand what everyone's doing too. You just don't know. And so I don't know, but again, I could Tim being good for a couple years, Ryan, and you, Brandon. I'd say you guys will dominate in a way.
Yeah, I think again, just reflecting on your team, I think it's going to be fascinating. I think short term, your team's one of the most interesting, and 5 years down the line, you're probably going to be right in that conversation of most interesting, just based on the moves you make. I know you're not one of those managers. I mean, I know you want to just get in the playoffs and squeak by, but once you get your taste of the playoffs, I mean, you're going to want to go for it. So I think. I think you just need, and I get it. I think you just need that taste of like, yeah, like I can do this. I know what I'm doing. And I think you're going to get it sooner rather than later. And then you're not going to be content with that. So I'm heavily invested in your team as well. I'm secretly hoping you just shit the bed here on out. But I think the likelihood of that is not as high as you would think. I think, you know, I think the pieces are there for sure, short and long term.
Yeah, it's like, I think it just, everything comes down to intrigue. That's the word that I want to put for Mr. Ambassador's roster. It's just intriguing. It can go in so many different ways. I also look at your team as probably the biggest to just like make ripples too, beyond your trade activity that we all are very familiar with. It's just, there's so many players on your roster that a lot of the contenders and the rebuilders would be interested in getting. And I think it really just comes down to, man, like I would love for you to be like sitting 4-4 minimum at week 9, like going into week 9, because I think that's gonna cause like crazy fucking moves for the rest of the leagues. And obviously we're all fans of action. And if Mr. Ambassador is sitting at 4-4 going into week 9, Brandon, can you imagine the fucking types of trades and the desperation that on the both buy and sell side are just waiting to see what, Sergey ends up doing? Because I think what trade deadline's like week 11, right? It's going to make so many things happen for us.
Yeah. And we didn't experience that last year. I mean, last year, some teams kind of snuck their way in, I think, just based on like your rising and my mediocrity, kind of closed the gap a little bit, but we didn't have an extremely explosive trade deadline. And yeah, I mean, Sergey gets in there around 500. If John gets in there around 500, I mean, sitting at 4-4, that would mean they'd have knocked off some good teams. If you add 2 contenders to our potential playoffs, and I mean that would mean that Eve is definitely struggling at that point. I think we're gonna have some fireworks here, and it's gonna be interesting too, because I think that gives you 3 buyers. Obviously, John and Sergey wouldn't be selling at that point. Eve can't sell, really. I mean, maybe he could. I mean,
He could be a seller. Yeah, he could be a seller. I got his first 2, so I think there's a lot of things that Eves can do too. Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. That scenario would benefit Tim more than anyone else. Tim is praying for that to go down. So, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think we're in for an interesting year.
Sergey, just for sort of like the notes at large for the rest of the league, for them to hear sort of how you're thinking or any things that you're looking at target. Are there any things that you're looking at right now that you just want to make additional moves for, like positions of need or things that you're looking to do like right now?
No, I think I'd like to improve, like I said, my quarterback position and running back. And I think of Nick Chubbs of the world. I think of Matt Stafford. So yeah, there are some things I'm looking at, and hopefully we can make it happen.
I think Chubb would be a pretty fascinating addition to this team. Obviously an asset that's going to decline quickly, following this year, but for this year, I think Kareem Hunt's is he even there? I think if is he signed? I can't remember, but even if he is, I mean, Chubb is established. I think Kareem's going to probably take a back seat there even more. That's an interesting piece. It all depends on obviously what you'd have to give up, right? What are you subtracting from this lineup? You'd have to be savvy with it, but yeah, I mean, throw Chubb in there, drop Connor to your flex. You've got Connor, Debo, and J.K. Dobbins as your flex. If J.K., comes back from his injury, like I said, he was projected as a top 10 back, and he's 23 years old. They didn't sign Melvin Gordon. To me, probably be because they stated we're going forward with J.K. and Gus Edwards. But the Ravens run the ball more than any other team in the league. So, I mean, that's all injury. He's got all the talent in the world. If J.K. Dobbins and Jalen Hurts step up, and maybe you can add one more piece just to kind of finalize, strengthen your squad, it's a solid squad. But it's kind of going to take some finesse. And just given the lack of draft picks, although, you still have all your seconds and you still got pieces there for sure. It'll be interesting. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, man, I've been in negotiations with John for Chubb, and I've been sending him some things, but he's probably enjoying a pina colada right now. He's not thinking about it. So I'll talk to him.
Hear something funny? John texted me yesterday and he asked me if my mom was in the Bahamas, and she is. So my mom just sent me a photo of John. It was kind of a creepy one. They're like getting into this hot tub or something. But yeah, my mom and John are at the same resort in the Bahamas right now.
Wow.
Yeah, super weird. Anyway. Yeah, I think we're probably in for a little bit of a lull, I would predict, just as far as trades. I think people are going to everyone's going to want to make moves because, it's a long way till August. But I think everyone's feeling a little, I may be speaking for myself, but I think a lot of people are feeling a little snake bitten following the draft, how much that shook up everything pretty much across the board. Everyone's team felt some sort of ripple from that. And I think we all kind of learned from that. So it'll be interesting to see, if we continue to see the action. I'm predicting it's going to take a kind of a step down until the rookie draft, maybe right before, if people want to get some picks. I think it's fascinating the fact that we're waiting as long as we are for the rookie draft. We're going to get a lot of off season, no preseason, which, we're not getting too much, but to see how kind of those position battles are looking in off season camp, could really elevate the price of those rookie picks or drop the price of those rookie picks even more. But I think a lot of people learn from kind of these premature moves, I think, and not for you, Sergey, but just across the board, these moves for players that either gained or lost value really quick based on nothing, based on, NFL teams draft picks. So that's kind of my learning experience, I think, from this period. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. And, you guys have been, you guys been through a season with some of the players in this league, and, I haven't. So I really don't know what to expect. It's, I'm thinking about all these scenarios and all sorts of things, but man, I just can't wait to go through it. It's just like, I can't wait.
Dude, Sergey, I'll put this on there too, which is this is our first off season for all of us. So we don't know what drafts are like. We didn't know what NFL drafts were going to do to the impact of the players. That wasn't even in my head. I wasn't trading Rashad Bateman for the Josh Allen trade. Now I'm thinking it's like, okay, I mean, I don't see Hollywood getting traded.
To be honest.
Yeah. I'm just like, you just wanted a younger player. I'm like, okay, that's the only young asset I have.
That was a make me feel better player.
Yeah, seriously, right? And then we see all these sort of transitions happening. And even now too, I think to Brandon's point, I think there's going to be a lot of things that the league learns together between now and come draft time, because that's also going to, sync with sort of the big kickoff of the preseason. I think technically at 1 week of preseason in, or it might be week 1 Sunday preseason for our draft. So yeah, there's a lot of things for us to learn. I think joining this off season as a new manager is going to prove out to be quite savvy in terms of timing too, because there isn't, everyone had those mistakes in the trades that we regret. I regret, I mentioned in some of the things, I regret trading away Cam Akers for Zeke when I knew I was building for the future. I regret making the trade for Ridley and sending Godwin away when they're probably equal players, and then having younger pieces sent out of that. And now my roster's thin as fuck at the depth, and now my rookie picks needs to sort of pan out. So yeah, I mean, I think honestly, who was it? It was Kyle earlier today making that ballsy prediction, right? And Sergey, actually, I want to get to your ballsy predictions in a little bit, but I think someone in the top slides, either through injuries or whatever happening. I honestly feel like my roster is like a prime contender for a shocking event at the top, because I need AJ to continue to be a top 10. He can't be injured, or he can't be regressed because he's now getting thrown by Jalen Hurts. And who knows if CD steps up. And if neither of them put up wide receiver 1 numbers, what receiver do I have other than maybe the rookies that I pick in this draft, right? So we're just in for an awesome, I think, how the things might play out come mid-season. So Sergey, we've had a chance to ask some of our managers around the ballsy picks, the ballsy predictions that they want to make for the league. We'll love to sort of hear about yours. For this season, what are some of the shocking calls that you sort of want to make that might happen?
Boy. This is not a prediction, but it's a commitment. I want to make it into the playoffs. That's like, I'm going there. That's my goal. So, man, I think Tim could win it all.
Oh, really going out on a limb there. Shit.
I think he could. Yeah, I don't know. I need to see the most recent trade. I haven't seen the most recent trade. I haven't really looked into it. And so, Yves, I don't know. Kennedy, I don't know, but I need to look at their trade because I think they may also, you know, sneak in and
Who do
potentially
you,
win.
so with you making the playoffs, what's your ballsy call on the manager that does not get in? Because you have the 4 on the top through the 3 separate tiers. Of the third or the second or even the first tier, Ryan, me, Eve, and Kyle that you put up to make the 4 seats, who do you knock off? I think that's the ballsy call.
I think I knock off Kennedy. I think I knock him off.
That's pretty fire.
You know,
That's a
I
hot
do.
take. I
Yeah,
kind of like.
that's a hot take. I like that a lot. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I don't know if Prescott will perform. You know, he'll. So I don't know. That's I'd love to knock him off because we just entered this dynasty together at the same time. I'd love to knock him off.
I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, looking back, I mean, you can see it. And he has a deep team, but now that he's made some of these trades, he's weakened his depth. And just based on last season experience, those are the teams. It seems like those are the teams that are one injury away from like everything shifting. And just where we're at in the league right now, I think it's going to be hard for teams to buy talent. I think the top teams are stacked with, basically my team. And then, the lower teams, there's no draft picks to get. So like their incentive to buy some of these older guys is not going to be very high. So yeah, I think just the kind of the psychology of where we're at mid-season is going to be fascinating. And yeah, I can't wait to see it. But yeah, thank you, Sergey, for joining us. Thank you for joining the league. We're very happy to have you. Yeah, go to sleep well. Don't room on old moves. Yeah, and just
Man,
keep learning, dude.
my evening routine is like watching a bunch of dynasty videos on YouTube now and just going down the rabbit hole of Reddit or whatever. Just that's all I do now. It's like,
Atta
geez.
boy, it's a lifestyle, dude.
Dude, it is. Dynasty is such a lifestyle.
But yeah, thank you for taking the time to chat with us. And yeah, we're looking forward to Vegas. That's about it.
All right,
Yeah.
let's sign off here. Thanks, Sergey.
Cheers.